Well, welcome to another episode of AuditTalk. I'm Scott Madberg, Director of Account Management here at Audit Board. And we're very excited to have a special guest with us here today, Kimberly Antifave, Global SOX and Internal Audit Manager at MarketAxess. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We had a few minutes to just chat about what was going on in your neck of the wood as we're kind of coming into the pandemic, and now we're really kind of getting out of this. So, I guess that would be a good place to start, as most of us are dealing with this, is maybe in the midst of everything that was going on with COVID and the pandemic, and maybe you can share, and it sounded like you guys were pretty successful, but some of the changes that you saw from at least an audit perspective, maybe some of the areas that were being audited or the types of services you were providing, or also too is maybe what you had heard from some others professionals out there.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, it's been a big change for everyone, and it came upon us very quickly. So I'd say one of the biggest things I noticed with our company is, like you mentioned, we were very fortunate in the situation to actually see a significant amount of growth, higher volumes, higher volatility in the market. So our biggest challenge was, from an audit department perspective, was trying to continue on our audit plan while the day-to-day operations were seeing such a significant increase. So in doing that, we have had to push a lot of our audits out into further down the year and sometimes into 2021 to give the business that time to sort of catch up. And now that they have been able to adjust to the working from home environment and get a handle on the day-to-day activities, we have been able to resume normal audit activities. But that's one of the things we're very fortunate with. We didn't have to, stop our audit plan altogether and totally reverse course and become more of an advisor or help with the BCP plan, which I have talked to other colleagues, and they've seen that much of a change in that they stopped their audit plan altogether and had to really shift their focus and become more of a second line, and we didn't have to do that. So it's been very helpful in that respect, that we can continue on with the audit plan and things aren't just piling up on us.
But what do you see kind of going forward with a new normal? What do you kind of anticipate that new normal looking like?
Sure. Yeah, I think it will change long term. We've had discussions internally. We have more town halls now as to what the new norm will look like when we come back to work. And the first part of that is when. We don't even know when that's going to happen. But what we do know, and what my company has alluded to, is it's not going to look the same as it was before. We're not going to have 100% of our workforce physically in the office every day, all day. So that's something they have already committed to. And I think a lot of the larger banks and other financial institutions have basically realized we don't need all this square footage, and we don't need everyone in the office every day to manage things effectively. So I think that will look different. What it will actually look like will probably be a happy medium between the both, I think, is, certain people will work from home on certain days. And like you touched on the technology aspect, I think there's going to be a greater focus from an audit perspective on things like information security, BCP plans, and even infrastructure. Can you sustain everyone in the company working from home long term? Potentially not. So, the infrastructure team will probably need to pivot in that direction, and our audits will need to update accordingly to follow that.
And I guess, from the standpoint of your team, what has been kind of their reaction, and how are they looking at it as far as kind of what they're going to be doing from a development standpoint?
Yeah, so we've definitely had to make a point of continuing that communication and keeping it open. It is a lot different than sitting beside people or walking by people's offices like we used to do. So some of the things we have done externally, and I mean external outside the internal audit department, is set up meetings with heads of departments. So people that we normally used to just see on a regular basis through other meetings or through executive meetings, we have set up a standing call on a monthly or quarterly basis to touch base with those people that we don't have the contact with anymore, because I think it's very important to keep that dialogue open and just give people an opportunity to chat. Even if we get off topic, you want to build those relationships and keep that dialogue open. And I think this environment has changed that. And it's really important to make sure people are all on the same page. That, if something has changed in the audit plan from a technology perspective, that, I'm not doing a technology audit, but it may be integrated with something else I'm doing. And if I can't just talk to someone next door to me, I won't know that. So we've definitely made a conscious effort to continue communication, whether it be set up weekly meetings or have a process with people where we say, hey, on this day, I'll probably just reach out to you once a week. Is that fine? And keep the communication open with Teams or Zoom or whatever you're doing. We have had to consciously think about that now, definitely.
I guess it would be interesting to kind of talk about, you're setting up these meetings, but the education to the business on internal audit. What does internal audit do? Companies may want to just put audit in a dark corner, but we do bring a lot of value.
Like you mentioned, we're a growing company. So just to give you a bit of background, we're about 600 employees now, but growing very fast. And we actually just a few years ago split out the second and third lines of defense. So we do have the separate risk and audit departments now. And that's actually enabled us to educate the firm on what audit does, because the department didn't exist before. So a lot of times we're going into scoping meetings or planning meetings with auditees that we've never audited before. And they're saying, who are you? What do you do? And it's a perfect opportunity for us to explain to them what we're doing, why we're there, and at the same time, how we can help them and how we can create that partnership. And it does become more of a Q&A and an open dialogue at the beginning. So I think that's really helped us, is splitting out those departments and initially having that training conversation. The second thing is actually just going to company events. You'd be surprised, like you said, you go to a meeting and people say, oh, you're from internal audit, and they automatically sort of put you in the dark corner, or maybe don't want to talk to you anymore. But just marketing the department and saying, why do you have those negative thoughts about us? Because these are some of the things that we can actually help you with. And just being an advocate for the department in informal settings, like going to company functions and walking the halls, and when we could do that, and things like that, I think have really helped train the business owners that may not have had exposure to us before.
How have you found using technology to help advance your audit team and your audit efforts? And maybe what type of solutions are you using or incorporating to help benefit not only the audit function, but the business itself?
Sure. So we happen to be using Audit Board quite a lot. So we started with the SOX module, which was a huge win for us. It was very quick to implement. We had a 200 control set. We were previously doing everything on Excel, and I was part of that implementation, and it went so smoothly, so quickly, that I was able to get business owners on the software and using it on a daily basis almost right away. So that was very helpful. And we also use Ops Audit, so to perform all of our audits, and we're going to be using the Audit Universe platform as well. And all of those things have cut down the administrative time by hundreds of hours. I can't tell you how much time it saved me in, updating things that I don't have to anymore because they automatically update in places. And secondly, like you mentioned, and we were talking about before, relationships, because the owners have access to that system, they have more of an ownership role over their controls. They know where they are. They can go in there and update them if they need to. They don't have to continually reach out to audit and say, hey, can I have your narrative or something to that effect? They know that it's in the system and they can access it and make the updates. And I'm aware of the updates they make. So it's made my job a lot easier from an administrative aspect, and also to loop in external audit because they're able to view everything with that external audit role as well. So we've really been able to create the three of us together in the ease of things that we do, and people can see everything that's happening at any point in time. So the transparency has also, I think, decreased a lot of communication barriers between internal audit and the owners ourselves.
And you're talking about stakeholders. And, often here is when implementing technology, especially for audit, it's how do we get the stakeholders? Did you guys do anything in particular to actually get those stakeholders to adopt the solution? It sounds like you had a pretty good adoption rate. Was there anything in particular?
I do think working for a fintech company helps because technology is ever changing, and it's definitely not going away in that environment. So I think people understand it and can digest it easier. And the way we were doing it before through email and spreadsheets, I don't think was favorable for anyone. So I think automatically when we were able to put a software in, the first few times someone got an email, they were just saying, well, what's this? And I said, just click on that one link and you'll see. And as soon as they did it, it was so easy and user friendly that it really didn't take a lot of trying to get people on board. They were already on board. It was very easy to do that. And now we've got, I think, 178 owners on the platform. So even outside of audit, because we've been sending surveys, we send the certifications as well. So our global management team is also on it for the surveys. And we've been able to implement it with Okta. We actually use single sign-on. So I think that's helped greatly because it's a very easy way for people to just one click. And it really has been something that we haven't had to spend a lot of time training. It's just been something that's very intuitive and people can pick up right away.
You were mentioning you had a considerable amount of hours that you saved. Were you guys performing any type of metrics to identify, hey, this is where we were prior to where we are now that management was asking for, or just for kind of your own return on investment evaluation?
Yeah, so the return on investment was mostly for the internal audit department. I knew how many hours I was spending as the global head of SOX doing the administrative work. And being a smaller company, we do have the leeway to say if there's a solution out there that you think can help you and make you more efficient, by all means, present that to us and we'll look at it. So when I presented Audit Board, everyone in executive management was on board with it right away. And I've noticed I've freed up a lot of time. Within the first couple months, I was able to add 2 audits to my plan. So you can see right away that efficiency that I'm gaining.
For those that may have not adopted technology or in the beginning stages of trying to adopt technology, I guess what maybe advice could you provide them?
I mean, I would do it yesterday if I could, just because it did save so much time. So I think some of the quick wins, especially from Audit Board, but like you said, finding the right technology for you, are finding that that quick win of, hey, if I take 100 hours to implement something, and within the next 6 months I can show you that I'm saving double that right away. It's pretty hard to argue those numbers when that's a 6 month down the road thing. I know some other softwares do take longer to implement that, especially for larger organizations, but they also have the resources to help them do that. So for me, I think that the easy part was going to the executives with a clear picture in my mind of how it would help us, how it would engage people. And it was less of a financial cost situation for us and more of the qualitative factors of the relationships that we can build, the amount of things we can do in the software, like sending out surveys and engaging some of our executive management that before we were engaging in email, and actually the security of doing it outside of email. So I went with more of a subjective approach, and I think there's a lot of qualitative factors that you can bring outside of just even the money that would be quick wins and that make executives see pretty quickly that this is something that needs to happen. And if every other department around you is implementing some type of technology and you're the only ones sitting back, or you're going to be pushed even further in the corner than you were before. So it's definitely something I would say, put the time and effort into it now. Even though you think you don't have the time, it'll save you so much more time in the future. It's definitely worth it to implement any type of technology, even small pieces. And I think from a group perspective, being global, we do have people in the UK and Asia and also in New York. So the transparency amongst our department increased greatly. We didn't have things on shared drives or on people's desktops on their computer anymore, where I would have to wait until somebody was in London, or if they were already at home, and ask them where they had this document or this RCM. It was already there, and I could just shoot them up a quick question if I needed to, based on what's already in the software, or I would get my answer directly by just going into it myself. So I think amongst the department, that communication, that transparency, and just being able to look at everything that everyone else is working on, where I wasn't able to do that before, has been really helpful.
On behalf of myself and Audit Board, we greatly appreciate you taking the time for today, and the information you provide is very helpful, especially for anyone that's been working in our current new reality, and but also too for those that are in an emerging and growing audit function.
Right.
and where we're going to be in the next few years, and it's a lot of great challenges ahead of us.
There certainly are. Yeah, they're not going away. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for having me.
Thank you.